day 5 of talking about Anne of Cleves, and today we're thinking about her journey to England to marry Henry. Yay! By the end of September 1539, Anne's brother, her slightly younger brother, William, comes to inform her that on her behalf he has arranged for her to marry the King of England. An important part of their of the marriage treaty was making sure she got a decent payout if she becomes a widow, because remember, at this point Henry is now, I think, 48 years of age, but not in the best health, and she is only 24. I'll double check that. I think she's 24. So there's a decent chance she could become a widow, so they need to make sure that's accounted for. So the agreement was that if she stays in England, she'll get 20,000 gold florins for her widowhood, compared to 15,000 if she returns to Cleves. And I'm hoping I'll come back to this and discover this, because I don't really understand why she didn't just go home, if that provision was obviously there for her. But hopefully I'll uncover that towards the end and let you know. But immediately she has to start preparing to travel to England. And this must have just been so difficult for both her and her mother. She's 24 years old and she has never left her mother or her younger sister. They've always been together. They've had their education together. They've lived together, for 24 years. Her mother hasn't had a day, maybe a day, but she hasn't been without her. And all of a sudden she's got to pack up and leave, and she knows she'll probably never see them again. So I can't even imagine how traumatic that must have been. Now, William's obviously in charge at this point. He's the Duke. Dad passed away early in that year. They don't have a huge amount of money, but he's determined to make sure that she travels in style and she has everything she needs. Now, by the time she's, ready to go, it's October. She needs to go soon to avoid travelling during the winter time. There's a lot of disagreement between Henry and brother William. Sounds like a monk, you know what I mean? Her brother William, over how to get there. Now, it would be normal for her to travel via land and then just have that short boat crossing across the channel. However, because there's this sort of sense that she might have Lutheran links, even though we know she's a Catholic, that she might not be safe. Henry's concerned she might not be safe on that journey, that she could get attacked or kidnapped or something could happen to her. And Henry, being this persistent, I'm not going to say a hopeless romantic, persistent, ridiculous romantic, has this idea that he's going to get all of these ships and he's going to send this big fleet over there to kind of swoop her up and bring her home. But there's one problem with that. His ships any ships have never done that journey from England to Cleves. So he sends off two experienced boatmen, sailors, to kind of plot this journey, work out where the dangerous bits might be and come back. But then William turns around and says, this is ridiculous. We're not doing that. We'll do it the usual way. And then he says something that plays into Henry's brain, where he says, she's very young and beautiful, and all of that, seafaring could make her ill and spoil her, essentially. So Henry's sudden fear then that she might not be beautiful enough when she gets to him, he agrees. So they're going to travel by land to Calais and then have that short crossing. So while he's waiting for her, Henry has everything kind of polished up. All of the ships that are going to be meeting her need to be sorted out. Any towns that she might pass through on her journey once she gets to Calais, sort of up to the palaces, everything needs to have a good old shine and polish and be sorted out. So pretty good news if you're one of those towns that she's going to be passing through. Now, as I said, there wasn't a huge amount of money, but William did let her leave in style. She took 263 people with her on this journey, her train of people. So there would have at least been some familiar people there with her. And it included 13, I never know whether to say trumpeters or trumpeteers. Do let me know. 13 people with trumpets. Cromwell seems to have really pulled out the stops for her here. At the various points she stops, there seems to have been nice little things for her. So on the 3rd of December, they stop in Antwerp, and Cromwell has arranged sort of a whole banquet for her. And there are various stops along the way. And then finally, around the 10th of December, they arrive in Calais. Noblemen have been waiting for her for days, and they've been keeping themselves busy with jousting and various other things, drinking, no doubt. Goodness knows what state they were all in by the time she got there. But anyway, she arrives at Calais, stays at the Exchequer. The whole town comes out to meet her, and like I say, there are banquets and tournaments and that sort of thing. She spends a little bit of time there. Earl of Southampton, the Lord Admiral, has been sent there to meet her and do that crossing with her back to England. It's hoped that she'd make the crossing on the 13th of December, but the weather just wasn't good enough. So the Lord Admiral says to her, we're going to keep an eye on the weather. You need to be prepared at any minute to just suddenly leave. And it's reported that she was very graceful about this, very gracious, in good humour all the time, no complaints. So she did that. Apparently she asked the men to teach her a card game that Henry might know so they could play it together, which I thought was really lovely. And she asked the Lord Admiral and the men, the nobles, to spend dinner with her, to come and have dinner with her, which they thought was very unusual, not the done thing. She insisted that for her it would be the done thing, and they were fine. And apparently they just reported back on how lovely she was, how she had the manners and graces of a princess, and at no point did anyone say anything negative about her appearance. They just praised her. There was one blow though. On the 18th of December, loads of letters arrived from Flanders, and so she really hoped they were from home, but they turned out just to be documents for Cromwell, which was a bit sad. She had to spend Christmas there, and then finally on the 27th they were ready to depart. So at 5 p.m. on the 27th of December 1539 she arrived in England, and she went to Dill Castle to have a little rest. Well deserved, I think. So I will see you on day 6, so that will be Monday, when we're going to talk about her wedding to Henry. See you then.